Our cheap power plan would axe the carbon tax, a tax that's gone up by 70% this year under Labour, pushing up everybody's energy bills, and it would scrap the renewable obligation subsidies, which sees some wind farms get 3 times the market price for electricity. And I'd like to start by thanking the Liberal Democrats who came out this morning to back the second part of our plan. I'd also like to thank Reform, who appear to have copied and pasted it wholesale, and the Tony Blair Institute, who just 2 weeks ago said we need to ditch Labour's disastrous clean power plan in favour of a cheap power plan which takes off carbon taxes. Sounds familiar? In fact, I will happily give way.
I'm grateful to my right honourable friend, even before she came into the department and asked for a whole system energy cost analysis. It was, while I was the Energy Minister, set as the strategic objective that we should have among the cheapest electricity prices in Europe in the 2030s. Does my right honourable friend have any idea why the party opposite has now dropped that as a strategic objective?
Well, I thank my honourable friend, who is so knowledgeable on matters to do with energy. And in fact, he's right. The only people who have not got the message are the party opposite. They are on the wrong side of this debate, Madam Deputy Speaker. They were sent out by their Secretary of State with a promise of cutting bills by £300. But bills have gone up by £200 since the general election. I warned them over and over again that this would happen, but they didn't listen. And now, under their plans, energy bills are going to keep on rising. Now, they might not want to hear that from me, but they should listen to the trade unions, or they should listen to energy bosses who came to Parliament just a few weeks ago and in a bombshell moment said even if gas prices went to zero, bills would still rise because of Labour's plans. And I would hazard a guess that this is a view shared by their Prime Minister, seeing as he tried to sack the Secretary of State at the last reshuffle. What does he know that these guys don't, I wonder? Our electricity is already some of the cleanest in the world, but it's also the most expensive. If you want people to adopt electric cars or home heating, then you need to make electricity cheap. If you want AI or industry to succeed in this country, then you need to make electricity cheap. If you want people to have a better standard of life so they can spend more money on their families than their bills, then we need to make electricity cheap. Our cheap power plan would cut electricity bills by 20% now, not just for a favoured few like they're doing, pushing up bills for 22 million families to give handouts to 6 million. It would cut bills for everybody, households and businesses. That's £165 off the average family's bill, but even more if you spend more. And the difference, you could do it now. Step one. I will happily give way on that point.
When the Honourable Lady speaks about our country, does she include Northern Ireland? Would her motion extend to Northern Ireland? Because we, of course, are subject to, unfortunately, EU regulations, which will, on the 1st of January, introduce the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, adding to the iniquitous Irish Sea border a carbon border. Her party brought it in large measure. What does she intend in the future to do about it?
Well, I thank the honourable gentleman for his question. He's right to raise the plight of Northern Ireland. As he knows, there's a single energy market on the island of Ireland. But what we need to do is cut electricity costs for everybody right across these isles. And the first part of our plan would be this: to axe the carbon tax. The carbon tax on electricity pushes up the price of gas, wind, solar and nuclear, and it's gone up by 70% this year thanks to their policies. We asked Labour ministers about this. They pretended not to know anything. We warned them not to do it, and they said it was a Conservative scare story. But here we are. The Secretary of State blames gas for high bills, and I'm sure the Minister will say it again today in his speech. But a third of what we pay for gas is a carbon tax that the government chooses to impose. So if he thinks the price of gas is too high, then take off the carbon tax. He could cut the price of gas by a third tomorrow. And guess what? That would make wind, solar and nuclear cheaper too. So every time that someone blames gas today, it's like complaining that their bath is overrunning but they won't turn off the taps. It's in their gift to axe the carbon tax. It's gone up because of them, so what are they waiting for? Step 2. When the wind blows, there are wind farms in this country getting 3 times the market price of electricity thanks to the renewable obligation subsidies. That is clearly mad. The Secretary of State doubled those subsidies when he had his last chance to ruin the energy system. We closed the scheme in office, but it is time to scrap it. And these 2 policies would cut people's electricity bills by 20% now, in time for winter, in time for us to be a world leader in AI, in time for us to stop the crippling redundancies in industry that are coming down the track. But instead, the party opposite is doing something very different. The party opposite is intent in locking us into higher prices for longer. The results of the Secretary of State's botched wind auction will become clear in January. When the party opposite promised to cut bills, the cost of electricity was £72 a megawatt hour. Last year, they locked in a fixed rate of £82 for offshore wind, and this year they're offering up to £117. Now, these are fixed-rate, inflation-linked contracts, and they've extended the length of those contracts. They will be paying these prices for 20 years. What they're essentially doing is signing us up to a 10% fixed-rate mortgage for 20 years because they don't want to be on a 4% variable that moves around. And the problem is this. If they are signing up to higher prices than the current cost of electricity, and that's before you include all the extra costs of wind, you have to pay them to turn off when it's too windy, you have to pay for backup when it's not windy enough, how is that going to cut bills? Higher prices for longer. And it's not just what you and I will be paying, Madam Deputy Speaker, it's what our children will be paying as well.
I'm grateful to my honourable friend for giving way. And we've seen this in the health service before with PFI, for example, when £13 billion worth of investment became £80 billion worth of public debt to pay back. Does she worry that this is exactly the same principle Labour seem to be providing here by locking in this high cost for the future for our children and for the country?
Well, I thank my honourable friend, and that's exactly the right point. It's a point that I will come on to in a second. Now, everyone remembers, actually, those contracts, and I will give way in just 1 second. And my honourable friend there is absolutely correct, because what the Secretary of State is signing up to is the PFI of the century, but this time it is going straight on our energy bills.
I'm grateful to my right honourable friend. Would she agree with me that the government could at least be consistent in its management of contracts for difference and its auctions? And does she share my bemusement that they have dismissed one way of providing about 7% of our grid requirements in fairly short order, and that would be to accept the interconnector between Morocco and the UK, which will bring reliable solar and wind-powered energy to the UK?
Well, I thank my right honourable friend, and he makes an excellent point when it comes to reliability of electricity. That's what we need. We need electricity that will work in the winter. We need electricity that will work when the sun is not shining and the wind is not blowing here. And the question that I would ask is this. Why is the party opposite signing up to these high prices and locking all of our constituents in for 20 years? And it's because this Secretary of State is in the pocket of the wind developers. These are the highest prices for wind power that we've seen in a decade. They might shake their heads, but that is just the fact. It's much higher than the price of electricity is right now. So why would you be buying more than ever before at the highest prices in a generation and fixing those prices for 20 years? And I say this to the honourable members on the opposite benches. If their constituents are saying to them, which I'm sure they are, that their bills are too high now, what will they say to them in January when it will be the Labour Party who locks them all into even higher prices for longer? Yep. And yes, I will happily give way on that point.
Honourable Member, thank you for giving way. Can the Honourable Member, Right Honourable Member, remind the House which party was in power when we reached cripplingly high energy prices that led to the cost of living crisis that we have today?
I will remind the honourable gentleman that when I was Energy Secretary, bills came down by £500. Under this Secretary of State, they've gone up by £200. And what he needs to explain to his constituents is why signing up to higher prices on inflation-linked contracts for 20 years is going to fulfil their promise, the promise he made to those constituents of cutting their bills by £300. I wish he could explain that. And actually, it's worth them listening to this, because from the Tony Blair Institute to the most respected energy economist, Sir Dieter Helm, everybody has pointed out this risk to them. It has not come to them without warning. The fact that they are signing up to prices much more expensive than gas for decades. They are on the wrong side of this debate, and they are on the wrong side of consumers. And come January, when those results are published, everybody will be able to see that. And they will ask them, were you warned? Did you do your job in Parliament and speak up for me and my bills? And here's the problem. Their whole position is not driven by what's best for consumers. It is driven by ideology. And nowhere is that clearer than in their war on the North Sea. Madam Deputy Speaker, when Scottish Renewables say Labour's policy on oil and gas is damaging the transition, surely even they must realise that they're on the wrong path. I will happily give way on that point.
I'm very grateful. She's making a very able speech explaining why this Clean Power 2030 plan is so ruinous for consumers. But what she hasn't mentioned is, of course, trying to connect up this very dispersed array of wind farms across the North Sea requires an enormous amount of new infrastructure. And we now know that the load factors are being reduced, so you'll require 30% more wind turbines to create the same net zero effect. And connecting all this up, the wind farm investors themselves don't have to pay the full infrastructure costs for connecting this all up. It's the consumers that pick up the bill. So there's another hidden subsidy for wind power that is not reflected in the prices, the guaranteed prices that are already being paid.
Well, I thank my right honourable friend. He is, as ever, an expert on this issue. And if you look at the price cap recently and why it went up, yes, it is those hidden costs. It was the balancing cost, paying wind farms to turn off when it's too windy. Next year, the network costs are about £100 per family. So he's absolutely right. You have to look at all of these extra costs that are coming down the tracks. Now, if I might turn to the North Sea, I'll happily give way to mine.
I thank my right honourable friend for giving way. I think she's making an excellent speech. I'm really worried. I'm really worried about my constituents who are going to face higher bills going into winter and beyond. The message is clear, isn't it? That this Labour government has the power to get bills down. They're making a choice not to do so.
I thank my honourable friend. He's exactly right. These are political choices, and they should reflect on them. When it comes to the North Sea, we know that we will need oil and gas for decades to come. I'll just make a bit of progress, and then I will come to the Chair of the Select Committee. We know we will need oil and gas for decades to come. Even the Climate Change Committee acknowledges that. Yet, thanks to their policies, we are paying Norway billions of pounds for gas from the exact same fields they are banning the British industry from drilling. I'll give way on that point.
She was kind enough to go through her plan with me, and I think there is, I'll be honest, I think there is merit in discussing some of the proposals on a cross-party, it's not what they think, on a cross-party basis, and I'm sure the government will do that. But she talks in the motion about the highest industrial energy prices in the world, the second highest domestic ones, but this was true throughout their time in office. It grew and became a massive problem. It's something I came across in this place in my time here. What is it about the situation she found when she was Secretary of State and her predecessors found that made it so difficult to address these very high energy costs?
Well, I thank the Chair, and I thank him for his time and going through the plan and his willingness to look at it as well. What I'll say is this, is they weren't always. We actually have had the lowest gas prices before the crisis, and we had lower electricity prices as well. What's happened is we've switched out a lot of costs into fixed costs, and those costs are increasing. Now, that's something that everybody is looking at. Like I said at the beginning of my speech, from the Tony Blair Institute to the trade unions to people right across the political spectrum, and we need to address it because there is a huge amount on the line, whether it's growth, whether it's living standards. Like I said, AI is something which is here in the near term. We can't wait till the 2040s, which is their plan, and even then it's not clear that their plan would bring down bills at all. I'd happily give way.
It's not the truth that the reason why energy bills are still so high is we still produce a lot of electricity by using gas and burning gas. And because we are burning gas, which is sold on the global market and keeps the energy prices high, that is the main problem, and we need to decouple electricity from gas prices and particularly get away from gas.
As the chair of the Select Committee was happy to spend some time with me, I hope the Honourable Lady was, because she might learn something. 40% of our electricity prices are wholesale prices, 60% are fixed costs. They are things like building out the networks, which is phenomenally going up under their plans. It's something even Ofgem has pointed out. It's like it's switching off wind farms when it gets too windy. We spent £1 billion on that this year. We're going to be spending £8 billion on that when it comes to 2030. So I would urge her to go and look at the numbers. Now, our imports of foreign gas, which has 4 times the emissions of British gas, have soared because of what they're doing to the North Sea. They were up 40% year on year at the beginning of this year. And when the unions, the chief executive of Octopus, and even the chair of Great British Energy has said that we should keep drilling in the North Sea, don't any of them wonder if their Secretary of State has got this wrong? I know the honourable gentleman there is shaking his head. There's nothing that I said there that is factually incorrect. I'll just make a little bit more progress, if that's okay. The truth is, like the winter fuel payment cut, the promise to cut bills by £300, shutting down the North Sea, supposed Clean Power 2030, their Secretary of State has told them to back policy after policy, which has unravelled as soon as it met reality. Time and time again, he is making them look like fools. There are hundreds of thousands of jobs on the line, billions of pounds of tax revenue. In fact, at the budget in 2 weeks' time, it would be less tax they'd have to pocket from working people if they just backed the North Sea. Never in my life have I seen a government deliberately shut down a successful industry like this. It's economic vandalism based on student politics. No wonder their minister got booed when he went to Aberdeen. They should scrap the windfall tax, end the mad ban on new oil gas licences and back our cheap power plan. Now, I'll just make a bit more progress because I know other people want to get in. We've heard a lot this morning about the different factions jostling to replace the Prime Minister. But I've got an idea for all of them that they can get behind. So I say to the Blue Labour faction, if you want to protect industry, then you need cheaper electricity, so back our cheap power plan. I say to the Blairites, if you want to make the most of AI, then you need cheaper electricity, so they should back our cheap power plan. And I say to the soft left, if you care about lifting people out of poverty and improving living standards, then back our cheap power plan. This won't just help 6 million households by jacking up the bills for 22 million. That's what they're doing. That's what the Minister will no doubt boast about when he talks about the Warm Homes discount. It will cut electricity bills by 20% for everyone. But they should think about this. At the last energy price gap, the reason bills went up, it wasn't gas. Ofgem was very clear. It was the political choices of this Secretary of State. He keeps making them defend the indefensible. And speaking of, where is he? Thousands of Aberdonians are losing their jobs. And where is the Secretary of State? We've been locked into higher bills for 2 decades. Where is the Secretary of State? We're missing out on an AI future. Where is the Secretary of State? Since July, he has bothered to come to the House to explain himself just once. Yet he's a walking, talking cost of living crisis, and his mistakes will be with us for decades. If I've read the news correctly, apparently he's tucked away somewhere, plotting his leadership bid. But let's be honest, the country was asked that question, and they were very clear what they thought about the prospect of a Prime Minister Miliband. He should stop plotting and start cutting people's bills. And the final question I would ask those on the benches opposite is this. Aren't they fed up of defending these policies that keep turning into dust as soon as they meet reality, of telling their constituents they will cut their bills when instead they keep on rising, of being political mushrooms left in the dark and fed a pile of manure. We were all mushrooms once, Madam Deputy Speaker. But if this is going to be their one and only Parliament, they should at least use it to do something worthwhile. Stand up to the Secretary of State. Stop him locking their constituents into higher prices for longer. Put cheap energy first and vote for our motion tonight to back 200,000 jobs in the North Sea, get back to growth and cut all of our constituents' electricity bills by 20%.